Welcome to the Ultimate Life television program brought to you by Pastor Gracious Selassie Awiye of Treasure House ICGC, where you are treasured and not trashed.
Welcome to the Ultimate Life broadcast. I'm your host, Gracious Selassie Awiye, pastor of Treasure House ICGC. Jesus said, I'm come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. It's life above the ordinary. It's called the ultimate life. On this program, we are presented with the blueprint for the ultimate life. So expect to be changed, expect to grow, expect the ultimate life. My subject today is knowing and experiencing the Good Shepherd. Denny Miller is an American actor who acted in Tarzan in what has become known as the worst Tarzan movie of all time. What a reputation to have. He died in 2014 very, very sadly. But the interesting thing about Denny Miller is when he went to audition for the movie Tarzan, they asked him to read Psalm 23. Isn't that amazing? Because it has so much emotion and so much content. They used him to audition the movie. I read not long ago that the most expensive book ever sold in the world is a 1640 copy of the book of Psalms. It went for 14.2 million. The Psalms are valuable. They are special. They have broad application. In Haiti, in 2010, when they had the terrible earthquake, a woman was trapped under the rubble for 7 long days without food and water. When they finally dragged her from under the rubble, they asked her, what kept you going all that time under the rubble? She said, all I did was repeat Psalm 23 over and over again. In a moment, we are going to look at Psalm 23. It's one of the most powerful psalms ever known to man. It's the one that has been spoken of and sung of more than any other psalm or any other song in the world. It only has 100 words in English and 6 simple verses in the Hebrew, 50 words. But it has profound implications for our lives. It tells us who God is, and it tells us who we are. It starts with the Lord is, and it ends with forever. In fact, that's what life is about. It starts with the Lord is, and we end in forever. It's a powerful psalm that's read at weddings, funerals, by sick beds, gravesites. It's read in time of peace and in times of war. It's read by people during their devotions, and it tells us about God, His character and nature, and it tells us who we are. He's the shepherd, and we are sheep. We must never forget that, because in our world today, we've been told that we are gods. But there's a massive gulf between a shepherd and a sheep. They are not even the same species. And here in this passage, we read about who God is. And you know what it's so important to read about who God is because when you know who God is, you can believe what God does. Once you know who God is, you begin to or start trusting Him, and you will experience what God does in your life. Before we read the psalm, I just want to give you some background to the psalms, because there are 3 psalms that make up what's called the trilogy. Psalm 22, Psalm 23, and Psalm 24. They are linked together. Psalm 22 is all about Jesus the Messiah hanging on the cross. They pierced my side. Many bulls have surrounded me. My tongue clings to the roof of my mouth. They all mock me. And then, my God, why have you forsaken me? It's all in there, speaking of Jesus in the future, who will become the suffering servant. We then read Psalm 23, which is a picture of Jesus, the Good Shepherd. Psalm 24 is a picture of the risen King. Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. So, hanging on the cross, the shepherd who looked after us, and then the risen Lord in heaven. It's an amazing psalm, all pictures of Jesus. But the amazing thing about those three psalms as well is the one speaks of Mount Calvary, where Jesus died, and the one that speaks of the resurrection is Mount Zion. But in between the two is Psalm 23, the valley, and that's where we live, and that's where we need a shepherd. How many of you know life can be quite a valley sometimes? And so we have the suffering servant who is being resurrected, the Lord. But in the middle is our shepherd until we reach forever. Today I want us to read that psalm. But before we do, I want to quote you from a book by Robert McQuilkin on the Psalms very long ago. And this is what he says. Psalm 23 is the greatest poem ever penned in any language. It reigns supreme in circles of highest culture and in the humble homes of the lonely. It sounds all the chords of human experience. You and I are going to see today how wonderful this psalm is. You'll notice many personal pronouns: I, me, my, because God is infinite, but He's also very personal. So let's go to Psalm 23, verse 1. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Not He will be, He is, present tense. And you'll notice many tenses in the psalm: the past, the present, and the future. But a lot of it is present tense because God is our present help in time of trouble. Look at verse 2 and 3. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for His name's sake. He deals with the inside of me. Verse 4 and 5. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. The God of more than enough. Verse 6. It says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This psalm has not just been written to give information, it is written to bring transformation. Because when you get to discover who God is, you can start to believe what God does. Knowing who God is determines what we believe God does for us. Much of the time, we don't trust God to do things for us because we don't really know who He is. We think He's judging us and we think He's against us. But when you get to know what God is really like, you begin to trust Him for your life and you begin to experience what God does because you get to know who God really is. So, 8 things that we see from the Psalm. When we look at who God is, He's the God who chooses to be seen as a shepherd. Is the first point. When we look at who God is, He's the God who chooses to be seen as a shepherd. Of all the pictures that God wants us to see of Him, He mainly wants us to see Him as a shepherd. From the Old Testament right through to the book of Revelation, God reveals Himself as a shepherd. The shepherd of His people, the shepherd of Israel, the good shepherd in the New Testament, right into the book of Revelation, where God will shepherd His people. God is not only going to be known as a judge. There are many pictures of Him. He wants to be known as a shepherd. A very interesting picture. The Lord is my shepherd. Isn't that amazing? Do you know that a shepherd is a 24-hour-a-day job? Shepherds never stop. Day in and day out. They take care of sheep. From the time they wake up, they are thinking about care, nurture, love. They are watching to see the sheep doesn't get lost, fall down the mountain, getting eaten by wolves, getting attacked by predators. They get bugs and worms in their body. They need to be cared for. He spends his time finding pasture, uphill and down below. He's looking for the next batch of grass so that they will flourish. He's checking on their wool. That's what God thinks of you. He wants you to know that He's a shepherd. He's not pointing out your mistakes. He loves you and He cares. The Lord is my shepherd. Not who will be. He is my shepherd. Not our shepherd. My shepherd. And the word Lord is the word Yahweh, which in the Hebrew language, it stands for the God who is infinite, the God who is all-sufficient, the one who has no beginning and no end. When Moses was with God, the Lord said to him, when you go to Pharaoh, tell him, I am that I am sent you. That's the name Yahweh. There's no other God like Him. He, this incredible one, is my shepherd, not my judge, not my bank, my shepherd. The one who every day when he wakes up thinks about how he can look after me. How incredible is that? But the Psalm has got so much more to say. And this amazing Lord, who we in the English, we say, the Lord is my shepherd. We use the word Adonai because the Jews don't want to say Yahweh because it's unutterable. God is so amazing, you can't even utter. They use the word Lord in the English because it's small caps, because it's Adonai. The amazing one is my shepherd. And every day He cares for us. He nurtures us. He reveals Himself as the shepherd. And He reveals to us we are sheep. How many of you know sheep are stupid? They are helpless. We need to realize that. Because sometimes we think God expects of us more than we can give. In the Bible, there are many animals. And many animals are able to look after themselves. Lions look after themselves. They don't need a shepherd. Even antelopes, they don't need a shepherd. When antelopes are attacked, they run away. They get away quickly. They've been gifted by God to spring over things. They gather in groups and look after each other. But sheep, they can't put up their paws and look at you threateningly. They just go, bah, bah. They've got no teeth. They've got no natural defense. They can't even run. When they are chased, they can run. Why? Because they are full of wool. He says that's what people are like. And I'm here to be your very shepherd, or your very personal caregiver. What's your need today? Trust him. Believe that he's your shepherd. He doesn't expect you to climb trees. He doesn't expect you to bite or bark. He says, I know you are dumb. You make mistakes. You wander off. But the Lord is my shepherd. I don't know if you realize it, but we have need of a shepherd. And we need to keep our eyes on the shepherd. John chapter 10, verse 3. To him the gatekeeper opens. The sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. We need to get to know the voice of the shepherd so that we don't listen to other voices. Sheep are very clever. I read a story about the Middle East and how a man came to his friend who was a Middle Eastern shepherd. And he said, it's amazing how you just speak to them and they follow you. They use sounds. They don't call them names like we do in England. And the sheep know their tone and they follow. So what the guy said was, I want you to give me your cloak, your staff, your headgear, and I want you to hide behind a wall. And then he came out with his back to the sheep. And he was dressed like the shepherd. And he had a staff. And he started to make the sounds that the shepherd friend makes. The sheep just stood there because they don't recognize his voice. Do you know the voice of the true shepherd? Because there are many voices emerging in our world. And they all promise nurture and they all promise pasture. But all they do is lead you over the mountain. In the abattoir, they use something called the Judas goat. The Judas goat gets among the sheep and make the sheep feel comfortable. The Judas goat goes amongst the sheep, gets the sheep familiar with itself. Then it walks up the ramp to the slaughter. And all the sheep follow because it's one of them. Our shepherd is not one of us. He's not the sheep. He's the shepherd. And you mustn't listen to the voice of sheep. You must listen to the voice of the shepherd. And he calls us by name. In Luke chapter 15, God is pictured as a shepherd. Luke 15, verse 4 and 5. What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he has lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. He doesn't say, sheep, they are all dumb. He probably fell down the cliff. They do it every day. I've got 99. He goes out and he finds the one. He doesn't castigate it and grab it by its wool and say, come here. You made me come out in the cold. I was about to have my meal. He puts it on his shoulders and carries it on its back. How many of you feel sometimes when you wander off and you get lost that you are coming back to condemnation? You are coming back to a shepherd who will carry you on his shoulders. The Lord is my shepherd. And God is chosen to reveal himself to weak sheep as one who will take care of them and nurture them, lead them and guide them and watch over them. What a wonderful picture. Mark chapter 6, verse 34. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. Not stupid, rebellious. He saw them as struggling. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 20. Now may the God of peace, who brought again from the dead our Lord Jesus, the great shepherd of the sheep, by the blood of the eternal covenant. He is the great shepherd. 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 4. When the chief shepherd appears, you receive the unfading crown of glory. He is the chief shepherd. He has compassion on us because he knows we need him, and he's chosen to reveal himself as sheep. Isaiah chapter 40, verse 11. He will tend his flock like a shepherd. He will gather the lambs in his arms. He will carry them in his bosom and gently lead those that are with young. The word tend is an interesting word. It's where we get the word tendon. And the word tendon is where we get the word stretch. What he's saying here is he stretches himself to look after his sheep. He doesn't do what's convenient, and he doesn't get annoyed when the sheep don't understand. He stretches himself for them, especially the weak and the young. The Lord is my shepherd. The next point is he reveals himself as the God who meets our material needs. He reveals himself as the God who meets our material needs. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Can you see the very next thing? He says, I will take care of your needs. Because this is what the shepherd does. Every day he wakes up, the first thing he thinks about is, I need to feed them. I need to make sure they stay alive. They get food and water. Let me lead them now. Don't ever go to the bank and ask for a loan. Don't ever go to work and not expect to be employed and improved. God is the one who wants to provide for you. He says, I'm your shepherd. You lack nothing. He doesn't give us our wants. He gives us our needs. And sometimes we get confused with them. He's the one who promises us that we will lack nothing. When you think of sheep being led out to grass, the sheep don't go and see like bits and pieces of grass. You notice in the world there are lots of grass. God has created much more grass than there are sheep. In other words, He has created abundance. All He needs to do is lead the sheep to what's already there. In your life, there might be lack, but God needs to lead you to the provision that's already there. And you need to trust. Because if He's your shepherd, surely you won't lack nothing. And He will direct you to what you need. If you look at this whole psalm, this text now is the basis for the rest of the psalm. It tells us that we will lack nothing. And then we read about all the things He provides. Grass is an interesting thing. Wars were fought over grass. When we think of the West and America, the West and America, and cowboys and Indians and all the wars that were fought. But actually, there were more wars fought in America over grass than there were between cowboys and Indians.
Thank you for watching the Ultimate Life television program. We hope you have been blessed by the teaching. Tune in to our next program on the same channel and the same time next week. You are cordially invited to visit Treasure House ICGC for our Sunday morning church services at the New Horizon Center, South Lodge Avenue, adjacent to the Pollards Hill Library, CR4 1LT. For ministry products